All right, so this is more, I mean, we'll debate a little bit, I feel like. But if those of you who don't follow us, we do actually do a bi-weekly show called AI Unleashed, where we talk about AI. He and I have been talking about this since
Jan of last year.
probably like a year at least.
Well over a year.
So we're going to try to answer all your questions in about 19 minutes around AI and sales. Maybe we'll agree, disagree on some things, etc. So first question, and I think this is one that we got that I think is an interesting one. Are there scenarios today where you think AI decision making is superior and should be used above? And we're talking generative AI, right? We're primarily talking generative AI here, tools like ChatGPT, Copilot, Gemini, etc. Should be used above human judgment. AI over human judgment.
So this one's, I'll say it's tough, but I'll try to give as direct answer as possible. So it depends on the data you're putting into the AI. There are places where I believe the checklists or the systems that I run, that you run, are better than, like, say, when you ask a rep if a deal's going to close, and they go, oh yeah, it's going to close. I don't trust that information. I actually trust AI to give me a better piece of information based off the things I look for, right? How recently has it been touched? Who are we engaged with? What was our proposal? When did we pitch it? How was the tone on the call? I actually trust AI more there than I do the individual.
All right, so data, you trust it, but look, I know relationships. I'm like a sales guy. Like, I know this is going to close. How do you think about that? Like my gut, my 10, 15 years experience, 20 years, whatever, versus the AI who's like just reading emails and analyzing my calls.
So the gut to me is only 20%.
Okay, so still 20% for
20%, there's a feeling, 20% you can go through, but at the 80%, there are certain things that have to happen in every deal, in every call, in every process. I trust AI there more than I do the rep, because reps, you don't know, we got happy ears, sales leaders, I can't see anyone out there, but like you got happy ears. We trust our gut too much, but we missed a spot. So I would trust more on the 80% AI, and that's that last feeling from the person that I think takes it over the edge.
All right, so the data side of it, you'll give that to AI.
I will give that to AI.
Okay.
Absolutely. Pattern recognition and data, I give to AI.
All right, that seems fair.
Okay. So I'm going to throw it back, and I get to do the big one for you right now. Job displacement.
Okay.
Job displacement, right? With AI becoming more integrated into the sales process, should the average sales professional be concerned about their job?
Should the average sales professional? Yeah, the average sales professional should probably be concerned. I think for me, what we see consistently is if your job right now is executing a cookie cutter demo, if your job is hitting send all on emails and you're not customizing them, like AI can do that. AI can put together a demo. I don't know how many of you have seen some of the new video technology that's coming out that can be personable and engaging and kind of one size fits all. So I think if you're trying to future-proof this, you have to think about, do I know my industry? Do I know how to connect with buyers? Can I add value? And that's the real key here, is that if you want to AI-proof your sales leadership career or your career, you really have to be honest with yourself about, am I adding value in the interaction? Because if the answer is no, or it's like mediocre, there's two things. Either AI is going to replace me, or people are just going to want to self-service.
Right. Well, let's go a layer deeper, though. How does a human provide more value than AI? AI has access to all the trends. AI has access to all the data. AI has access to the internet. AI never forgets. How can a human outvalue
That is
AI?
a really good question. Context.
Okay.
Right? That is it. And again, as AI continues to evolve, it will get better at context for sure. But this is for all, I mean, again, anybody in sales, like, look, if you're not passionate about the place that the space that you serve, if you're not dedicated to being smarter in ways that you can help buyers to where you can add value in the conversation and provide the context to their specific scenario, that's where we're still, I don't know how many years away, but let's call it at least a good 5, 10.
Yeah. I think this is where I have a slightly different take. I think it even goes above average in terms of the ability to be replaced by AI. Because y'all got to remember, this is the worst AI is ever going to be right now. This is the worst it will ever be. And it can already mimic voice. It can already mimic facial expressions. It already has the data. It can already connect the dots. Jake and I, we talked about this over a year ago. I wrote down everything I do as a leader and went box by box to say, what can AI do now? What do I think it can do in 3? And what do I think it can do in 5? And there was not a box left on that list in terms of things I think it can do in 5 years. And so that's why we're so heavily invested in learning, which actually segues it though. Okay, so how do I defend my job? What are the skills a seller should be focusing on now to leverage? Because there's the quote, AI won't take your job, a person with AI will take your job. How can I be that person to take the job?
How many of you use ChatGPT every week? Okay,
Early
good
adopters.
amount. Every day? Okay, a few of you every day. The most important thing that anybody listening to this, and again, I don't care if you like, Anthropic, Claude, or Gemini, whichever you choose, is you need to understand what these tools are capable of. And what I tell people, the skills that we have to learn is generative AI is a foundational shift in how we solve problems as humans, right? We went to the library to get information a long time ago. Some of you may not remember those days.
Dewey Decimal System?
System.
Hell yeah,
Yeah,
Dewey Decimal.
exactly.
Hell yeah.
Then we were like, okay, well, Google now can help us to aggregate all of this, give us a bunch of ideas. Then we've learned over the last 20 years to problem solve by gathering a bunch of things, opening up documents or talking to people and doing it. And now it's like, no. Don't give me 5, basic words. Give me everything. And it starts me at V1 in what would have taken me an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, the skill set is to understand how to use this tool, because my productivity, let's say I'm a B- player, I can just out productivity you, right? Because I'm going to be able to do this research, do this, and sound really smart, to an extent, right?
Yep.
So for those of you out there who are not using it every day or really, kind of immersed in it, don't give up early. I think a lot of people give up too early, but it's going to be the ability to know not just how to prompt, because prompting sooner or later will not be a thing. We'll have agents that will prompt us. But in the meantime, you need to know how to do that. You need to know how to use the tool to get the information out, or you're just going to be problem solving what would be considered old school. You're just going to be going to the library when these people are over here using Google.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'd add to that is taking a step back to think about what AI is capable of. Like, we talk to companies all the time and say people aren't even thinking about what's possible with it. It's still too much like, hey, like, who's done this? Who's used AI to write an email? Anybody used AI to who's using AI to take meeting notes? And it's like, okay, y'all know it can do way more than that. And so I think sellers need to really take a step back and go, what is it I do? And I would say be willing to admit that AI might be able to do it better. Because I think it's the resistance that we're feeling a little bit in sales right now that actually prevents people from utilizing it to learn the skills that they need to learn. So I would just say prompting is big, but consider outside the box ways to leverage it.
Yeah, training, development, build a 15-question quiz about the 2010 to 2012 Kansas City Chiefs so I can play with my friends.
No.
All of the above.
No.
All of the above.
None of it.
All right. Let's talk about sales leaders, okay? So you mentioned this at the beginning, which was, okay, what are some of the ways that AI could out-predict or outpace human? Let's talk about sales leadership. If you are a sales leader, but you're talking to salespeople and aspiring leaders and actual leaders, how can sales leadership stay ahead of these? I think for a long time, sales leadership has outsourced a lot of their knowledge of this types of tools. And what are some of the strategies or places in operations where you feel like sales leaders really need to be paying attention?
Oh man, I mean it's everywhere, right? So I had AI in my onboarding process, right? Where I had reps role playing with AI agents in onboarding and the boot camp. We used AI to have fill in the blank sales playbooks to make it more engaging, right? This is what I love about some of the GPTs is it's active learning, whereas if you give a rep a playbook, they're reading it, they don't have to do anything, whereas if they have to fill in the blanks. So we used it to create our certification programs in there. So on onboarding, it's huge. Role playing and training, it is huge. Anyone here in my workshop yesterday? I think I got some workshop people, right? So y'all saw like my checklists and like the prompts and the adherence forms. Loading that into GPT allows me to give it the context. So now reps can role play the way that they're supposed to or ask questions. Like I legit have a Bipsy bot that we've built. We've got scorecard bots where you can ask it a question and it answers it the same way that I would. So we built that into Slack. At my last company, we had a tax GPT because we sold into accounting. Who here knows all the tax laws? Nobody. We had a tax GPT, a rep could answer in Slack and get it. So I mean everywhere, but then pattern recognition. This is where I think leaders aren't using it enough, is asking the questions, because I think AI connects the patterns more. analyze all of my most recent deals. What commonalities do they have? That was one of my favorite things to use it for. It's like, oh, this industry shows up a lot, or this size seems to be right. So even deal inspection, I think, is big for AIs, building workflows, like with copy, GPTs, with here, like it can be used everywhere. I just think, it's funny enough, I think reps are using it more than leaders are.
Oh, they are
Like
100%.
reps are using it, and then leaders are like, oh, nah, man, like I'll wait for it. They should be using this everywhere.
Yeah, and I think too, I mean, we talk to CTOs of companies, and we'll talk to sales leaders who are like, I'm not sure, like, the regulations and these things, and then, we'll get on the phone with the CTO, and the CTO, this literally happened, multi-billion-dollar company, CTO of a division is a month ago. Well, isn't the data in ChatGPT like old and isn't it from like a year ago? It's like, well, when it first came out, like, let me explain this to you. And so I think also, for me at least, I think sales leaders have to realize like you cannot outsource learning what these tools are capable of. Like you can't just say my CTO and everyone has the same checkbox, Copilot. Oh, well, yeah, we have an AI strategy. We went and bought Microsoft Copilot, right? And it's like it's good, like it's a good start. But if I'm a sales leader now, and after our conversation a year ago, you got to fire yourself for at least 2 or 3 days to start to think of some of these use cases around training and onboarding. Data. Again, like that's a good one, right? I could upload 10 of my last call recordings where I closed lost, 10 where I closed won, and say, why am I winning and why am I losing?
It's asking the right questions. I think that's one of the biggest things I look at leadership is asking the right questions. But as we're my sales leaders, we got revenue leaders out here, right? We got revenue leaders. When you go ask a person what's going to be included in that answer, I'm going to get bias. I'm going to get their interpretation of it. Whereas if I can get an unbiased opinion on what's occurring, I can then compare it to the human side of it and actually leverage it further. But most sales leaders are not even coming close to what this can do for their team, and they're going to lose to people that do. They're just going to. So then we'll transition. You were just talking about big companies, right? So we get to talk to a lot of companies about this. What are you noticing between the big companies and the small companies when it comes to AI? Like, who do you think is a better fit for it, and who are you seeing adopt it faster or better?
Well, I think most are behind, but I think what you said is interesting. Is it's the reps using it, right? We had a smattering of hands of people that were sales leaders, and we had a lot of people whose hands went up whenever we talked about people in sales, right, and people that are using it every day or every week. And so I think what we're seeing, whether enterprise or small, your reps are using this. And so whenever I think about this, I think it's a little easier sometimes for smaller companies to do like little isolated pilots without the IT getting involved, et cetera. So I think smaller companies are going to move much faster with a lot of this because, again, I'll go back to that example, and I've heard multiple examples over the last 6 months. I think a lot of sales leaders look at AI as this like technology that's big. They hear all the fear in the media, and it's not that some of it's not unfounded. And then they go to their IT support, who's supposed to be there to support them, and they're like, no, we've got it covered. We've checked your AI box. And so then sales leaders are going back like, okay, we're good. So I think smaller companies can be more nimble. The sales teams are already using it. And so you have to start to think about how do we have, even if it's V1 of our company policy of this is what we're going to do and how we're going to use it, because the teams are already doing it.
Who should own it, you think? Because as you look at this, if the sales leader doesn't understand it and RevOps doesn't understand it and the reps doesn't, who should own this within a company?
Ooh, that's a good question. That's a really good question. How I think about generative AI as a whole, okay, is that too many companies are trying to figure out how to have a generative AI strategy. What is our holistic? That is daunting when you think of all the different use cases. So what I might, and again, I might backtrack this at some future point, but my brain is at is instead, whenever we work with companies, what is the work that people are doing today in that department, and where can AI augment it? So don't worry about it can do this. That's when people get overwhelmed. So to me, it's like if there's a department or a part of the business with the clearest use case, then they could probably own it for that part of the business. I don't think, I mean, of course, big companies, they're going to have data issues. You might need to have like some type of data security person, but I do feel it's more departmental and keeping it departmental, because in the department is the only one who's going to know the use cases for it.
Right.
So that's, I think, yes, is there some centralized, but the use cases need to be decentralized.
Yeah. So what I did at my company, who here has like AI developers for their product? Anyone here have it? Like, do you have AI people working within your product? Have them shadow your team for a day. Have them shadow your team, and they will see use cases that you haven't even thought of, right? Because that's what I did. I was like, watch them. They didn't even make it a day, funny enough. They came back 4 or 5 hours later. We're like, yo, we've got 5 different things we think we could automate for your team, for your program, everything else. So like, even if there's not an owner, get the smart people to watch the people work, and they will find things that they can do and automate very easily.
Yeah, we did something similar. We've got kind of a ChatGPT guru. We carved out one whole day of our offsite where he met individually, and everyone brought like, where am I spending time that's not value add for a client? And they brought the problems, and they sat there. He sat with each team for 2 hours, very, very similar. Came up with 2 or 3 custom GPTs that were almost immediately able to solve some like transcription, rewriting, a whole bunch of other challenges.
All right, we got 2 minutes left. We're gonna wrap this. So Jake, the future. What are you most excited about for AI, and what are you most concerned about when it comes to AI?
Oh man, what I'm excited about is just to put in perspective, prompting won't exist in a few years. Like prompting is a thing that's like now, and most of you don't remember there used to be this thing called MS-DOS, which was like how you play Oregon Trail, and it would like fire up, or I can see some people.
You died of
shaking
dysentery.
their head. Yeah, I'm 43. And so then we started to realize, well, we don't need prompts. We now have agents that can do things. So it's going to get a lot easier. Meaning, like, we've developed a set of custom GPTs that it's like, help me book a meeting with. It's like, give me the link to the website. I'm ready to get started. And then it says, okay, now that you've given me a link to the website, give me a link to your website and your 2 best product pages. Okay. Now give me the job title. So we're going to be moving into this era very, very soon. And some of these already exist where agents will go and help you to come up with the answer that you want to come up with, and also go and do things for you very quickly. Of like, hey, go and find me this annual report and analyze the top 3 trends year over year, and here's a link to my website, and tell me the 3 ways that I should try to engage with the CMO. Mm-hmm. So agents is kind of the next thing that I think most people need to realize. So you need to get good at prompting now, but we will have a world very soon where it'll be an irrelevant skill.
Okay. So I'll go on the flip side of what I'm most, I'll say, concerned and excited about is I believe it gets to a certain point where we no longer have to engage with a salesperson because we can build tools internally very easily. So I can just go internally and say, hey, I need a tool that will help me analyze all of my salespeople's calls, tell me what's working best, blah, 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 blah. And the AI agents can build that internally without even having to go out to the market to find things. Because we've made it this far as knowledge workers. We're paid for our knowledge, and now knowledge is commoditized. And so I think that's my concern, is what happens to then knowledge when knowledge is everywhere, right? Where does that knowledge then go? So that's the way I'm operating. Is I believe I am replaceable, but now my goal is to replace myself. That is how I'm operating, is if anyone's going to replace me, it's going to be me. And that is like how I'm trying to go through this. So we'll see. It's going to be a wild next 3 to 5 years, my friend.
Start the journey now. You got to start the journey now.
Yes. So awesome, y'all. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your time and energy. Hope you got some value from it. Jake Dunlap, Kevin Dorsey. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you.